Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk Sox. Ethan and Brandon here again to discuss everything going on with the Red Sox. The trade deadline is about a month away at the time of this recording. The All-Star break is just a couple of weeks away. The Red Sox are mired in a bit of a losing streak, which we've talked about in a separate video. And so ultimately, post Rafael Devers trade, it's starting to look very likely that the Red Sox are going to be sellers at the deadline. And they obviously have a lot of interesting pieces to potentially trade. I mean, after Rafael Devers is traded, it feels like everyone's on the table. So, just want to talk about, with you, Ethan, who are the players that you expect the Red Sox to maybe trade? Who should they possibly hold on to? Do you expect a good return for any of these guys? So just, start throwing out some names. Let's talk about some Red Sox players.
Yeah, before I even start throwing out the names, I will say that in my opinion, I don't think that the Red Sox are looking to spend a lot this year. Again, they just got out of the Rafi Devers contract. I think part of it was monetary based.
Hmm.
But with that, again, we are a news-based, let's call it channel first, and also we're an opinion-based channel, so it's a little bit of both here. But for my first kind of mention here of somebody I think we should lose and trade off, I'm going to shout out Masataka Yoshida. He's been with the team for quite some time, and we've discussed this in videos prior, but I feel like his slot is kind of gone. He's been an outfielder for a while, but, you know, his, I guess, if you want to call it tier system, there are other outfielders ready to replace him at this point. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the rumor has been that once he's healthy to come back this year, it's that he's going to sort of platoon at the DH position, which is only open because we traded Rafi Devers, which is a whole different conversation. But yes, I agree. I think I personally would like to see Yoshida get some run at DH and see if he can live up to some of that contract. But it wouldn't surprise me because of what you pointed out of, hey, this, the Devers decision was definitely based a lot in money. Yoshida's one of the highest paid players on the team. He has not been producing up to that level of the contract, even when he's been healthy. I don't know if they're going to find many suitors for him, given his health and given the size of his contract at the deadline this year. They might need to give him a little bit of run to get build up his value again. But I definitely agree that I think that Craig Breslow, in his very analytical mind, probably is looking to move off that contract.
Yeah, what's one take that you have of somebody you think we're going to keep or maybe trade off as the trade deadline comes in close here?
Yeah, I think a player they'd love to move is Trevor Story. Again, a guy on a big contract has not been playing super well. I don't think he has any value. So a guy who I think is more realistic to see traded is going to be Aroldis Chapman. He's one of the most valuable relievers on the market right now. He's been having a total throwback season with the Red Sox, which again is partly why it's so frustrating that it feels like the front office kind of kicked the ball down or kicked the can down the road on this season. But he's on a 1 year contract. He's a for surefire closer. He's going to be worth a lot at the trade deadline. It would be shocking for me to see him stick with Boston past July 31st. So, to me, for a Red Sox team that feels like it's ready to just sort of say, you know what, 2025 season is not going to be our year, it would be shocking to me if he wasn't traded.
Yeah, I would agree with that. To your Trevor Story point too, again, like he's had in the beginning when he was a Red Sox, just a few years ago, I think it was his peak year as a Red Sox. Coming from the
Mhm.
Colorado Rockies, anybody who's a Colorado Rockies, player, maybe minus Blackman, doesn't want to
Mhm.
be in Colorado anymore. They want to get out of there and they want to, and that's there's no shame in that. However, again, I think that Trevor Story's prime is past him as a Red Sox player. As for Aroldis Chapman, I agree with you that I want him to stay. Again, it's kind of one of these things, just like with another player that we may mention, Alex Bregman. They only have so many years. They choose these short-term contracts for a reason. They might not want to stay with the team, and they have that upper hand of, look, I'm not enjoying myself. I want to make more money. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of with you on here, where it's like, look, the ball in, no pun intended, not court, but the ball in it is in his court here. So,
Yeah.
um, somebody else I think they're probably going to end up trading. It's another outfielder is Jaron Duran.
Mhm.
Again, he hasn't been performing as well as he was in his younger years with the team. Again, there's also just been, I don't want to call it a fireable offense, but there's been so much controversy around him. I think that the team, has fostered his career so much, but I think
Mhm.
they're ready to ship him off to another team.
Yeah, I think most Red Sox fans sort of appreciate the point that hey, Duran had his breakout year last year. He was an MVP candidate, and they should have traded him over the offseason when he was coming off that season, as opposed to now when he's definitely playing far below that level. He's been, a slightly below average bat. His glove has not been as good this year. He's just been a lesser player this season, which is frustrating, obviously, for Red Sox fans and for the front office that might want to trade him. But I completely agree. I think Roman Anthony's in the big leagues. Willie Abreu and Rafaela look like long-term keepers. That's already all three outfield spots accounted for. Duran kind of feels like the odd man out, especially once Alex Bregman returns to health and he sort of starts shifting position, people all over the place again. So I agree. I don't think that they're going to get a great return, which is why they may hold on to Durant. If they're going to hold on to him, it's going to be because they don't get a good package
Yeah.
offered to them by the trade deadline. But I think that as far as anyone on this roster is getting like crowded out, it's Jaron Durant.
Yeah. What's
Um,
another one
I'll,
for you?
I'll bring up, one last guy who, we've mentioned at this point a couple times, Alex Bregman. He was so good, so good in the beginning part of this season. I mean, looking like a legitimate MVP candidate, more than living up to that giant contract he signed. And now obviously with the team struggling with, he's been out for about a month with an injury. It kind of feels like the train has lost steam at this point. With him being in Boston long term, with him sticking it out for the rest of this year. Again, I wouldn't be surprised to see him not get traded because again, he's getting paid $40 million, which unless you're like the Dodgers, it's hard to sort of soak in that kind of contract mid-season. But he has a lot of trade value, as a really good hitter, as a, very strong defensive third baseman. The Red Sox don't seem to be going anywhere fast this season. So in terms of building for the future, I think you have to trade Alex Bregman. Again, it's going to depend though on sort of what other teams are willing to trade given the size of his contract.
I think I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, which I do sometimes, in these videos. I don't think they will trade Alex Bregman for one, the reason of they spent so much money on him. And again, if we talk about how they don't want to spend any more money, but in the beginning of the season, it was kind of the opposite of they're like, look, we got money to burn here. And
Hmm.
Alex Bregman was such a household name. I don't think they want to give him up so quickly. Look, they have him on a 3-year deal. Why throw it out in the first year? I think maybe they want to say, let's give him to the second year if he says yes. And then if he still performs like crap, then they're going to kick him to the curb or, vice versa. He'll say, I'm done. Um, my other thought about him is yes, he's a great defenseman, but if his injuries really catch up to him and the defense falls off, the one other place you can put him is in the DH slot if his hitting, kind of comes back, right? So I would like to believe in my heart of hearts that Alex Bregman will, once his injuries have healed and he comes off the IL, that he, will prove himself again to the Red Sox. But again, it's not only up to the front office; it's also up to him at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, there's a month to go before the trade deadline at this point. There's so many rumors flying around, and whether the Red Sox win a game or lose a game sort of feels like it could decide their fate at the trade deadline. So, as always, please let us know your thoughts in the comments. Are any of the players that we mentioned guys you want to keep? Are they guys you want to see gone by July 31st? Any other players, that you think the Red Sox should trade to build for the future? Let us know. And as always, we'll be looking at every comment.